Well, since I got a setup going that's actually working and I got good sound, I got good video, I'm just gonna keep it going. Let it do while it do it. So we already saw the first part of this interview, and in this part, this is where she's talking about when she's coming back in the house and she's asking the boys like where Summer is.
Sister was, and they said she went downstairs, mom, to play with her toys in the playroom. I said okay, and I yelled downstairs for her a couple times, and I didn't get no answer, which was unusual because usually she always answers me. And so I went down there to check.
Okay, and people were saying about her yelling down and not actually going down and checking or whatever. Well, here's the thing. They lived in a two-story, basically. So they had the basement and they had the main floor. I lived in a one-story house, and it was quite common for someone to yell to another room for someone. Like every time my parents and grandparents didn't get up and physically walk to where I was every time they wanted to say something to me or ask me something. And the same on the other end. Me and my brother, we didn't always get up and go to whatever room this other person was in to talk to them. It was nothing to yell, "Hey, grandma," or one of the parents or grandparents hollering, "Hey, you kid." So I don't really see the big deal about her saying that she yelled down the stairs a couple of times before she actually went down there.
Check, and she was nowhere in sight. She was just gone. I don't go on walks around.
Now, that's another point to Bell palsy. You notice she had muscle control of her face, okay, in that where she was expressive in nature. Bell palsy paralyzes one side of the face.
Here or runs because I'm scared of the bears and snakes and even the coyotes that are around here. Well, whoever has my daughter, I pray and hope that they have not harmed her and they bring her back to us safe and sound.
Just go to the FBI, the police, and clear it up.
So, one thought that occurs to me is this 2 minute gap. Okay. So, does when they get back from the store, and we all seen the photograph of little Summer asleep in the back seat. I've heard different things about the hand movements and stuff, but you'll also hear the mother and grandmother talk about wanting to catch her with her hand up. Okay, so that doesn't concern me personally too much at all. What bothers me in this particular statement is there's a 2 minute gap here. Well, is there and hypothetically, is there a car following them, which there's been a lot of talk about? I don't know. Okay. But if she has a dependency problem, uh, uh, is that play into this? Is she going, to cop dope? And that's the reason? I don't know. Okay. I definitely would ask that question. Okay.
I mean, I don't know. It seems kind of elusive.
It's really strange that I've never seen this truck and I've never heard of it until just recently. But I wish they would come forward and explain themselves. And if you're not a suspect, at least come forward and say what you've seen. She was a tomboy. I shaved my head. She wanted to have her head shaved like me and the boys did.
She tried to shave her head
She tried
in
to
the
shave her
back
head
and make
herself.
it. I think you can see it in some of the pictures, and it was getting out of control. So we decided to shave her head off and let it grow back long. And
So I did apparently rewind a little further than what I intended to because we're back at this weird explanation of how Summer's head ended up shaved. So let's just trudge through it.
she shaved her head to so she wouldn't feel bad, and but it didn't bother her at this.
So I'm not worried about this type of conversation with the parents, because that's what 5-year-olds do, right? I mean, if they cut their hair, then that's what they're going to do. What I think is a problem is, number one, there's definitely something on board. Now, whether or not that's for her anxiety or something to that effect, I get it, and I think that is a possibility. But simultaneously, if it's not, okay, then we have to ask ourselves a question. And the first question that comes to my mind is that TikTok video where she's driving the car and she's not under the influence and she doesn't have Bell palsy that day, okay, which was a couple hours earlier. Okay. She's actually talking to her mom, okay, and they're talking about, getting, some type of photograph with Summer's hand in a certain position. Okay, number one. But she's not UI. She's not under the influence. Okay. In California, they call that 11550. Okay. That's the health and safety code for under the influence of a controlled substance. I think any DRE, drug recognition expert, that would look at this and has seen thousands of these on the street, okay, would probably say this person is definitely on something. Okay. Xanax is for depression, right? It's an antidepressant. Yeah, I agree. But so that's why I'm leaning more towards the opioid group, personally. I hope I'm wrong. I could be, but I've seen this. I've seen that look so many times, and have put so many people behind bars for under the influence. That was the first thing that struck me.
Well, I knew right away that she was abducted. I knew
Yeah,
that right
benzo.
away, and that's what I told them from the beginning. But they have to go through their, I forget the word.
Investigation.
They have to do one step at a time, I guess. But I'm sorry that they had to spend so many man hours in these woods and everything. I've seen them limping and everything else, and I feel for them. But I just wish there was a way that neighbors could search neighbors' houses, and then if they're not willing, get a search warrant or something. But there's just no way you can search every single house, in the eastern United States or whatever. But I wish there was a way. Just thankful for the person or persons that's doing that, out of love, trying to get information and trying to get her found. We thank them from the bottom of our hearts.
That means a lot.
And we thank everybody who's trying so hard and praying so hard. And she's an awesome young lady, and we just want her back. But, there's always going to be haters, and it's always going to be that way in this world. And we just want to focus on the good friends and Christian people that are trying to help us and praying for us and praying for Summer. And we thank them from the bottom of our heart. And that's the kind of people we try to relate with and socialize with. So we don't know anything about, no red truck, or we hardly know many of our neighbors. I mean, because we just try to
Okay,
be around good people.
now
I mean, and we do have good people in this
I
area.
actually find it rather
Since this
believable.
has all happened, we got some real good neighbors and good
We can
folks
get this to
everywhere.
pause. Okay, I think it's paused. I actually find it really believable that they don't know very many of their neighbors. Um, it just depends on the type of person you are. Me personally, I don't tend to usually know very many of my neighbors either. I'm just not a people person. The house I grew up in, lived in the house until I was like 28, I want to say. I was familiar with who the neighbors were, the names, like the family names in each house or whatever. I could point to a house and say, "Oh, that's the so and so's," or "That's the whoever's." Even off my block that I actually lived on, I was familiar with where a lot of families live. Like, this is that family, this is this family, or that lady over there is a teacher at the elementary school. But as far as knowing neighbors personally by their personal name or from associating with them, hanging around with them, talking to them. No, I really didn't. I knew a few people. I was friends with a few people that I went to school with, but not a whole lot of them. Like I've always been kind of a introverted, like stay to myself type person. I don't do crowds. I don't do people really. So I can kind of understand where he's coming from. He says that they don't know many of their neighbors. That's really not far fetched, especially now they live in a very rural area. Houses are really spaced out. It's not like your neighbor is right next door, like in the city or in the suburbs. I mean, you might have a mile or two or more between you and your nearest neighbor. So it's not even like you're going to see them every day. And with all those trees and everything they got up there, I can imagine that when they get on top of their hill, that's just their world. They're in their that's their zone. They're in their world up there. Um, if I lived up there, you better believe that would pretty much be my world. Because, like I said, I don't associate, and maybe they don't associate with people like that.
But
The most important thing is to bring Summer home safe. I'm sorry that you feel this way about us, but we love our children with everything we have. We've never went without. Thanks to Summer's daddy and my husband. He's always provided for us and has worked as much as he could and can and still is. And I'm sorry that you guys feel that way, but that's my baby, and nobody would ever treat her like that as long as I was around.
Now, I did find that statement odd, and that's again that goes back to me having an issue with the way that the news station put this interview together and put it out to the public. Treat her what way? What was Candace referring to when she said that? You know, what was the question that came before this that caused that answer to be what she said? So it's like out of context, and it leaves it open way too wide to people just coming up with these fabulous, ridiculous stories that we've all heard here and there around YouTube, around social media, or whatever. Um, I mean, could it possibly be that someone suggested? Now, and I based this hypothesis off this answer that she gave and something Don says later on in the interview about um her being trapped or something and not being able to get outside or whatever. And maybe it was presented to them like, what do you think is going on with her? Do you think somebody might be doing XYZ to her? Um, I can't make sense of why she would phrase her answer this way in particular because I really can't think of a question that someone would likely be asked in a news interview that would cause this type of answer.
Now, the question obviously we didn't get to hear that the media had asked her, but she was obviously, extremely defensive on that question, and so we don't know, what it was. But you know, through this whole discussion that's taking place here, um, I'm seeing the husband obviously, he's not defensive. I mean, I think, culturally, for that part of the area, uh, and he's not from there originally, right? We know that. He's from the, Utah, Texas, and Arkansas area. But he's in the construction trades. He looks like he's a drywall taper. So he's working in, those trades. And it sounds like, mom here is extremely supportive of him. Okay. Whether or not mom is being medicated by a doctor, um, I don't know if a doctor I've not seen or had an experience where a doctor stepped in to medicate a family member like this soon. You know, is it possible? Sure. Okay. But I'm also concerned with the fact that she stepped away for 2 minutes. Okay. Well, in that 2 minutes, if that's really the time frame that we're dealing with here, we then have a variety of other, things that we need to take into consideration. Number one is that swing area is critical in her subconscious mind because she projected that almost immediately. And the second thing is when dad is talking about the neighbors, you'll notice immediately he crosses his arms and he projects a barrier out from himself. Now, there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. That could also be the fact that, the young lady who was on Unmasked last night was, maybe problematic to them and them to her. Okay? Maybe that's what they're thinking. I don't know. Okay? But I would definitely want to know a little bit deeper about this time frame in relationship to why the swing becomes significant. Now, I've seen the TikTok videos of the swing with Summer, which we all have. But for some reason, Mom has projected that into the conversation. Okay? Maybe TBI went down that lane, but I think that's really important piece of this puzzle that perhaps she was outside playing and there's that the story going into the house never existed and that she was outside playing and so maybe she's protecting it in relationship to maybe she's feeling guilty that she wasn't paying more attention. The other thing there is dad projects onto the boys this emotion, or actually, it's a lack of emotion, but this thought process about paying attention to where your sister is. Okay? For some reason, that just doesn't make any sense. Okay, at this point, so I'm going to back up here a couple minutes here, actually a minute, because there's some other significant things I want to point out.
I knew right away that she was abducted.
So he knew right away that she was abducted. Okay? Um, but he was at work, in my understanding.
I knew that right away, and that's what I told them from the beginning. But they have to go through their, I forget the word.
Investigation.
They have to do one step at a time, I guess. But I'm sorry that they had to spend so many man hours in these woods and everything. I've seen them limping and everything.
So he's now apologizing for the investigation taking place. Okay? And he's apologizing to the investigators for going out and looking for his daughter.
Else, and I feel for them. But I just wish there was a way that neighbors could search neighbors' houses, and then if they're not willing, get a search warrant or something. But there's just no way you can search every single house, in the eastern United States or whatever. But I wish there was a way. Just thankful for the person or persons that's doing that. Out of love, trying to get information and trying to get her found. We thank them from the bottom of our hearts.
That means a lot.
And we thank everybody who's trying so hard and praying so hard. And she's an awesome young lady, and we just want her back. But, there's always going to be haters, and it's always going to be that way in this world, and we just want to focus on the.
Now, what's interesting is he interjected the word behavior. There's always going to be a behavior. Let's listen to that again.
And right here is another point that caught me where you can tell that Chris McDonough goes into this with his mind already made up that Don has some kind of guilt because he's hearing what he wants to hear. I clearly heard the first time he said it. Now, the first time I saw this interview, it was just the interview. It wasn't like with anybody talking over it or breaking it down, analyzing it. So I clearly heard him say something about haters. I never heard behaviors. And out of what he said, I don't even see how you could get behaviors unless that's what you were looking to hear. Because just in the context and the way speech flows naturally, behaviors just wouldn't even fit there. It wouldn't have made any sense there. So, and I'm not knocking Chris, I'm not bashing Chris. Um, I get it. He has years of experience. He's got years of being on the police force, being a detective, doing investigations and interviews. But Chris also has some issues in his past. And so I can't take everything that he says as the gospel truth. I gotta take it with a grain of salt. And then not only that, regardless of whether he had a past or not, he's human. And every human is fallible. So I'm not knocking him. I'm not bashing him. I think he's really doing some really good work on this case because his interviews and investigations are bringing out a lot of stuff. But I do think that he went into this whole situation having already fixed in his mind um, what he thinks happened, or even if not what he thinks happened, who he thinks did whatever happened. And I think that, and you'll hear in a little while, he'll come back and he'll correct himself after people point it out. But even then, he's still trying to make what he said and what was actually said by Don, he's still trying to like make it fit that point he was trying to get across. And so I just don't think that he's as fair and objective as he possibly could be, like not as open minded as he possibly could be. But I definitely commend him again for everything he's doing on his case because a lot of stuff has come out about Don. And I think that Don is about to get a serious day of reckoning that is well deserved by him. And I think that most of that is due to um, Chris McDonough, his interviews, is bringing things to the surface and giving people a platform to be able to talk about things that happened 30, 40, 50 years ago. So anyway, let's get back to this video.
And it's always going to be that way in this world, and we just want to focus on. We thank them from the bottom of our hearts.
That means a lot.
And we thank everybody who's trying so hard and praying so hard. And she's an awesome young lady, and we just want her back. But, there's always going to be haters, and
right there.
It's always going to be that way in this world.
He corrects himself.
We just want to focus on the good friends and Christian people that are trying to help us and praying for us and praying for Summer.
So he mentions inappropriate behavior, i.e., something, something has happened, and then he corrects it in relationship to thanking everybody as a result of that behavior, i.e., into the public, everybody who's helping, and he thanks, everybody that's circled around him. Okay, and then he discovers that there are really good people in his circle of influence. Okay, and Mom just kind of piggybacks onto that statement.
And we thank them from the bottom of our hearts, and that's the kind of people
he said
we try
haters.
to relate with and socialize with. So we don't know anything about no red truck, or we hardly know many of our neighbors. I mean, because we just try to be around good people. I mean, and we do have good people in this area. We found out since this was all
haters.
happened.
Okay, got it.
We got some real good neighbors and good folks everywhere. But
The most important thing is to bring Summer home safe. I'm sorry that you feel this way about us, but we love our children with everything we have. We've never went without, thanks to Summer Daddy and my husband. He's always provided for us and has worked as much as he could and can and still is. And I'm sorry that you guys feel that way, but that's my baby, and nobody would ever treat her like that as long as I was around, ever.
She loves to dance. She would always want me. She says, "Daddy, hold my hand so I can twirl," and she would just like to twirl and twirl and twirl until my arm got tired. Yeah, but and I put out there that one of Summer's favorite songs was Godzilla, and they say, and they're jumping all over me about past tense was, well, I'm sorry about that. It's just,
She also liked the song by New Breed. It was called House, My House. She sung that a lot of times when I play it on the TV. She loved to dance.
she liked to think of herself as a princess, and and all that, like all young girls do. And
She loved Frozen. She loved to be that Elsa and
Okay, I'm gonna stop right there for a second because while it's fresh in my mind, I'm not sure which video it is, but over the course of these videos that Chris did, um, he pointed out that Don said in this interview he called Summer his princess or something like that, and that that's a sign of grooming, and that's a word or a term that abusers use to groom their victims. But you heard for yourself that Don did not call her a princess. He said she likes to think of herself as a princess or a ballerina. And again, I don't want anybody to feel like I'm defending Don or I'm on his team or something like that. I am not a part of his fan club at all. Um, I am not a stand for him or whatever. I really think the dude needs to be locked away forever, forever, ever. But I believe in being fair, and you can't be fair if you have like prejudices or um, thoughts about a situation that are based on untruth. The truth is he didn't say that. So he's not using grooming behavior or grooming phrases toward his daughter because he didn't even say that. He didn't call her my princess, which a lot of dads call their daughters their princess. A lot of moms call their daughters their princess. So even if he did, I really wouldn't read a whole lot into that. But the simple fact is that he didn't.
I think she really loved to be in church because she felt a lot of love there, and I think you can't explain what that love is, but you feel it and you know it, when you're young. And she felt that there, and she loved everybody in that church, or she loves everybody in that church. I should rephrase that because they'll tear that apart as past tense, and I apologize again for that. I hope she gets to come home, and I hope she gets to be with our church family again.
our best friend in that church was Robin. She loved her to death.
Yeah, she looked up to
When
women that were.
she come to that church, she went looking for Robin. That was her favorite person.
Any woman that was professional, that
Was pretty,
yeah,
beautiful.
she looked up to those kind of women. They were the word I'm looking for. I can't think of it, but she looked up to them. She'd give them a run for their money every day. She'd give them a run for their money, and there was times, we'd be, that our boys like, don't do this and don't do that, and next thing you know, the stick would come up and just whop them, and it'd be like, Summer, don't do that.
Summer was the boss of the family. She
So the obvious here is, and this has obviously been for the last couple of weeks, and I went back and I was listening again. I guess he does say haters. There's always going to be haters. Either way, it's a descriptive of a behavior of some sort. Okay, and an emotion. Okay. He's projecting emotion into other things, away from himself in these particular things. But what I think is really fascinating through the context of this entire interview is the fact that again everything is past tense, which everybody can clearly see. Okay, but you'll notice that her countenance, okay, is what one would call on the nod. Okay, she's constantly on the nod. So internally, she is up against this battle of something that's on board with her. Okay, and I'm not a doctor, but I was a DRE, and I'm still going to lean towards something in the opioid family here. And the only reason I'm going that direction is I looked at this video very closely at her pupils, and those doggone pupils are fixed. She's having a hard time just raising her eyelids above her pupils. Her eyelids are almost halfway across her pupils. So when you get an opportunity, really take a look at what's going on here. Now, why is that significant here? Because if she was, that day when she got home, we know, at least we have evidence that in the car she wasn't under the influence and she was not on the nod like this. Okay, she this if in fact that day when she got home, and yeah, could be benzos. Thank you, Donovan. If in fact, okay, that she had to get a fix. Okay. I've been trying to see if she's got evidence of any type of abuse, needles or whatever. She recently had a situation in Wisconsin where I pulled those court records. It was a domestic situation that got resolved up there. But in this, with her, she is this mom, and I'm not saying that she's not, taking it because of the trauma of the event. That's not what I'm saying. Okay. I'm saying that she is on national TV talking about her daughter under the influence of some type of controlled substance. Okay. Now that just doesn't happen overnight. Okay. It is a tolerance scenario where somebody has to get to a certain point where they keep taking it because they need it. Okay? And in this case here, it makes sense when you hear other folks in the area say that she was providing potentially other things to other people. Okay, like this, I heard last night the young man who maybe was getting alcohol or something, quickly into him. But I think she's got a high tolerance level, and even though if she's on benzos or whatever, okay, if she's in anything, in that category, class 4, then to come on national TV. Problem, i.e., the disappearance of her daughter. Well, that's going to fog her memory. Okay, but at the same time, it's also going to throw out potential clues, and one of them, in my opinion, goes to that swing. There's something significant about outside, and remember, if we take a look at that statistic about the time, okay, of being outside. Okay, that falls right into that category. Okay, that falls right into that category. Okay,
Typical girl.
When they get on line, she'd put them in line.
She'd do her best.
She loved to play in the mud and the water and swing on her swing and enjoy dirt.
When I run the lawn, she would run behind me. When the boys run their bikes
Yeah.
around, she, as fast as that little bike could go, she would be behind them running and keeping up with them, no problem. You know, she loved to run. She just loved to run, and she could pull herself up on that swing, her full body weight with her two hands, and she could do that. None of the other boys can do that, but she can.
Was she in school yet?
No,
No.
she's going this year.
This was supposed to be her first year of
She's been
kindergarten.
did all the what?
I took care of everything.
Yeah.
I had her already taken all of her shots and registered in the school for ready for this year.
I just never expected for anyone to get a hold of my heart like she has, because I try to guard my heart as much as I can, but she holds my heart in her little hands, and I love her with all my heart. I'd do anything to have her back. If there's any way, find it in your heart to please release her somehow. I don't know how you might do that.
See, he's talking to somebody. I don't know about you guys, but I'm watching this, and he's, he's projecting that he's having a conversation. They're convinced that Summer had that this is a stranger situation.
Now, I want to point out a couple of things right here because as we go through these videos, you'll see where people were saying how Candus and Dawn never asked for their daughter to be returned. They never said anything about keeping her safe, or they never expressed how much they loved her. They always talked about how much Summer loved them, and you can see for yourself that that's not true. He just said that he loved her with all his heart. He in this video he has been constantly talking about his love for his daughter, and Candace as well has expressed her love for her daughter. Also, the past tense thing, which is about to get ready to come up. I'm going to go ahead and address that now. I did a lot of reading and researching on that, and it's like you can't automatically, because someone starts speaking of someone who is missing in the past tense, you can't automatically say, oh, they have some kind of guilty knowledge or they know for a fact. According to all the stuff that I've been reading, and I'm not going to share all that because it's a lot and it's on a lot of different websites. But if you do just a little bit of research, you'll come across the same thing. There are academic papers out there on psychology and some other things where they're talking about um, that general thing. And it's like sometimes you speak in past tense about something because it will always be true. Even if the person is alive and well and you know that they're alive and well, but what you're speaking about, like how they're saying she loved to be in church, she loved her church family, that will always be true. It will always be true that at the time that they're talking about, she loved her church family at that time. That may not be true in the future. There may come a time when her feelings toward the people in the church change, but at that time she loved them, and that will always be true. That's never going to change. It's past, it's over, it's done with. Also, some of them went into how after a person has been missing for a certain amount of time, the longer that a person is missing, the more the mind kind of leans toward speaking in past tense, because in your subconscious, it's like you have to read it for yourself, but it's not necessarily always like a bad thing, And then statistically speaking, we all know that um, children who are taken, and I believe the statistic that I found was that in the first 3 hours, I'm flipping through here trying to find it right now. In the first 3 hours, here it is. The first 36 hours are critical in missing child cases. Within the first 3 hours, 70 about 76% of kidnapped children are killed. And within the first 24 hours, that percentage goes up to 85%. So that's something just about everybody has always heard about how soon after being abducted a child would be murdered. So that would still have to be in the back of their mind too at all times. Like it's been a long time, and I don't know where my kid is, and or who has them or what. So the way it usually plays out, some people are just. I'm kind of a realist, and I think that if I were in their shoes, that thought would be in my mind. I probably wouldn't speak it out loud, but I would be very aware of the fact that chances are, and maybe I would say it in private to certain people. Probably not on TV, but in private to certain people, I probably would be like, it's been 2 weeks. Haven't seen hide nor hair. But let's get back to the video.
Situation. Okay? That's a red flag. Because in this, in of itself, statistically, and not only that, if you just look at some of the peripheral players here in the neighborhood, and then you look at the circumstances in relationship to, what the timeline is and that 2 minute piece, okay, you just don't have a scenario where in 2 minutes a child just evaporates, a 5-year-old child. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the elephant in the living room. Okay. And that elephant in the living room is not necessarily about his son, who's in Utah, okay, and who's obviously, a high risk offender, okay, sexual deviant offender, okay. But statistically, okay, that the fuel that those kids learn, okay, uh, obviously in graphic in nature, is the internet and the majority of that material that's available. Okay, but here's the elephant in the living room.
Okay, and I'm about to skip ahead a little bit because I want to go ahead and get finished with this interview. And I don't really want to take up a whole lot more time on it because everybody's reviewed this interview time and time and time and time and time again. Um, so I'm gonna skip past the parts where Chris is talking because you can go back and watch this entire video. I really just kind of wanted to tell you how I thought and felt about some of the things that happened in this video. So we're gonna skip ahead some.
Okay, it is a learned behavior idea.
Well, we're gonna skip ahead if it'll let me skip ahead because apparently it does not like skipping
Take
ahead.
all of that internet material, i.e., computers, if there are
Let's try that and see if
computers,
this
if
works
there
better.
are any phones, etc. They're going to download all that information, and they're going to have a treasure trove of information there. Now, does that mean
Now we're coming up to a part here that stood out to me because they're saying that Candus knows something. Candus knows what happened to her daughter. Dawn did something to her, whatever. But if you look at this, if you look at this clip and pay close attention to Candus, because the look on her face, Dawn says something, and I can't remember exactly, but Dawn says something that kind of insinuates that Summer may be deceased. And the look on Candace's face is just like utter just I cannot believe you said I mean from the depths of her soul. Like how could you even insinuate something like that. So let me see if I can get this to go ahead and play for you. I have to just reload the page and pick back up from there. And I don't know what it is why it does this because I mean, we got like the fastest internet available. So there's like no reason that the videos should stop and crash like this. So I'm not sure exactly what goes on with that. All right, looks like it's back up. Come on and load for me, baby. And I believe we're about an hour and 30 minutes in. Okay, it is apparently not gonna play. But go over there, watch the video. I think we were at right about the hour and 30-minute mark is where I was trying to pick it up. And if you notice right around that time, Don says something that basically kind of infers that Summer might not be with us any longer. And Candace looks at him like, oh my God, like that's the furthest thought from her mind. And just her reaction, just to me, if she knew for a fact that something was wrong, something had happened to her daughter, or that her daughter had passed, there she wouldn't have reacted that way because that thought wouldn't have been like shocking to her or whatever because she would know that it's true. So I don't think, just based off that, I don't think Candace has any type of guilty knowledge about her daughter being deceased or mortally injured or anything like that. Now, that's not to say that she might not have some type of guilty knowledge of something happening to Summer, um, or that she was injured or taken, or I won't even say sold because I really don't think that that's a possibility at all in this case. Like I don't think that's even an option. I'm still gonna try to pull this video up real quick because I really do wanna show that part. And it looks like it might come up for me. Just bear with me. I'm working out some things. Like I have a computer that should be able to like totally handle this, but I actually need to go into it and do some physical repairs like I do IT. But you know how that goes. The hairdresser never does their own hair, and the mechanic never fixes their own car. So I have been stalling on fixing my computer. I guess I'm just gonna have to go ahead and do that. All right, it looks like I got it pulled up, and it looks like it's gonna go ahead and play through. So let me get the screen shared again. And since I'm wide awake and I got a system that looks like it's working, I want to, when we end this live stream, I'm going to go live again. And I'm going to take you through some of the research and reading that I've been doing because I
When
think
I
it's
went up
helpful.
and looked at what was going on in, Utah again,
Okay,
okay, I don't know if it's in the water, okay, but something's going.
let's see here. Yeah, I think that like the stuff that I've been looking up and reading or whatever that is helpful. It's helpful to understand some of the things that are going on. And I'm also going to give you a link to I found some information about how the family court system works because there's been a lot of speculation about the boys and what's going on with them and how that all works. And I saw somebody was like, "Oh, they've been convicted in family court," and that family court don't even really deal with guilty and not guilty and convictions and or whatever. And even if they did, those boys have been removed from the home for what, about a month, a little less. There is no way in the world that that process would even be to a point where I forgot exactly how they phrase it. Uh, Something like found responsible or whatever, that it hasn't even gotten to a point where the parents would have been found responsible for anything yet because they would still be in like the investigative stages and then they have to go through stages of coming up with case plans because the primary goal has to be to keep the family together and to get the children back into the home, and then it's only when they see that getting the children back into the home is not going to be a viable option, then they move towards other types of permanency placing. So they wouldn't even be at a point in family court right now to where it would be a guilty verdict, even if they did guilty verdicts in family court, which they don't. But let's see here.
Always be close by, but we was always coming up. She had to be outside. She was an outdoor person.
She's allowed to be outside.
And I'm so afraid that she's locked away. She's such a loving heart and everything, and I'm afraid that she won't be able to, I'm locked away where she can't be outside or play with a puppy or anything, love nature, and that's my greatest fear, that she's not able to do any of these things anymore, or that she could possibly, I don't want to think she's dead, but it's a possibility. I don't want to address all the negativity. I just want to.
There it is.
Now,
You see that
a
look?
picture's worth 1,000 words.
When he suggested that Summer could be dead, do you see the look on her face? Like this is not the reaction of someone who knows for a fact that their child is dead or injured to the point of death. So I guess I'm gonna go ahead and end this live stream now. Um, like I said in my first video that I posted, I'm not defending anyone. I'm not on anyone's side. The only side I take is Summer Wells. Um, because in all of this, Summer is the only real victim, and she is the only defenseless, helpless, innocent involved. Of course, her brothers as well, but our primary focus is Summer because Summer is missing. We know where her brothers are. I mean, we might not know exactly where they are, who they're with, but we know that they've been taken into custody and they're placed somewhere that's safe. They're healthy. They're being fed. They're being clothed. They're being taken care of. They're getting whatever medical or mental attention that they need. Summer is the victim, and that's the only side I take. And if it seems like I'm defending Don or Candus or anyone else, I'm not. But I just feel like in order to get to the truth, you have to see the truth, and you can't really get to the truth with a lie. You know, like you heard for yourself in this video, Don never called his daughter a princess. He said Summer thinks of herself as a princess, but people said other things. There was another point in this video that I wanted to share, but I guess I'll do that at another time because I really want to go ahead and end this stream. But people were saying that Don dissed Candace and said that um, Summer liked pretty women and that she preferred pretty women or something like that. But right here in this interview, you'll hear where Don says professional. It's Candace who says pretty and beautiful. Don never said that. He never dissed his wife like that. So I understand the need to want to find a villain, and Don is so easy to he is so easy to hate. He is so easy to point fingers at. He is so easy to pass judgment on, and he does indeed deserve judgment passed on him for some of the things that he's admitted out of his own mouth. Whether or not he deserves judgment passed on him, whatever happened to Summer, remains to be seen. I truly believe that if TBI or Hawkins County Sheriff had any notion that he had skipped out of work or wasn't where he said he was that day, they would already be all over him. He'd be somewhere wearing a striped jumpsuit. If for nothing else, he'd be locked up for lying or interfering with an investigation of a missing person just to put pressure on him to tell the rest of the story. So I tend to not believe that, not jump on the bandwagon with he did something in this case. In the next couple of videos, I am going to eventually get to the guy in the red truck because, as TBI said, nobody's been cleared. Everyone is still a suspect. And his case, his story, his behavior, his actions before, during, and after Summer's disappearance are all suspect. And since TBI says that nobody is cleared, I really want to, like get get the story about him out there, because honestly, I think that in the end, at the end of the day, when this is all unraveled, he's going to be right there in the middle of it. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end this live stream, and I may or may not come back in a few minutes.